How you doing, everybody? Chris Ramirez here with Rick Novak. We're in the Center Bank Studios. This is the Hose Connections halftime report for Week 6 of the high school football season. Rick, got some good games going on out here today.
We sure do. We've got Andrean up 14-0 in the third quarter here over the Highland Trojans.
Yeah, I got a couple reports from out there. Andrean apparently had the ball inside, and by the way, a former 59er here, Rick Novak, with us. Had the ball inside first and goal a couple of times and weren't able to come away with any points.
You got to take advantage of those opportunities when you have them. You got to be able to punch the ball in, at least get some field goals there. To get no points twice within your 10-yard line there, putting it in, it's really tough. It's hard to win games like that, but right now they're still looking good.
Yeah, Highlands had a lot of offensive struggles tonight over there. It's homecoming night, and from the reports I'm getting is they might be thinking a little bit more about homecoming than they are the football game. Let's hope that's not the case. But Andrean unable to put them away by not cashing in on at least one, if not both of those. So 14-0 right now. Andrean leads it. Both teams at 2-3 trying to even up their record and kind of get a leg up in the conference, standings.
Oh, no, undoubtedly. You're trying to get back to 500 there, trying to get a conference win. I think this year in the NCC we've seen a lot of parity. It seems like there's not a lot of blowouts. I mean, Hanover, they've been putting the beats to people, but
the exception to the rule.
The exception to the rule right now, but I think the NCC has been a lot more even than it has been the past few years. It's kind of been the Lowell, Andrean.
Yep, it was a little top heavy. Yep.
Yeah, but this year it seems like it's kind of been a little bit deeper, which is a good thing to see, I think.
Yeah, I think with the exception right now of Hanover, I think almost anybody could potentially beat anyone else in the conference.
I was going to say
I'm not going to drop Hanover in that until somebody challenges them. But everybody else, for the most part, has been challenged in the conference. Let's move over to the Duneland. Chesterton and Portage going at it tonight at the Warpath, 21-14 at the half. Chesterton with a one-touchdown lead.
Yeah, I got to see Portage last week. It's a young team. I mean, I think they're still trying to get their bearings to them with Roy Richards as their coach. But, look, they're playing Chesterton tough. And both these teams, I think, are better than their records. I mean, 1-4 for Chesterton, 0-5 for Portage. But they both played tough schedules. And in that Duneland conference, it's hard to get wins. And, that's a conference where any game you play, whether it's against the best teams or the teams that people think are not as good, it's going to be tough to go out there and get a W. So we're seeing that tonight in a pretty close game where people might have thought Chesterton was a little bit favored coming in, but they got a dogfight on their hands.
Yeah, this is a rivalry game. Two neighboring towns out there in Porter County. They know each other pretty well, so no one's going to lay down in this one. And I've talked to Roy Richards a few times, and young is the word he keeps using. We're young. We need work. We need to get, a lot of work in. But that's a program, I think, if you're a Portage fan, just be a little patient here.
I mean, if they've got the right guy
if he doesn't have a track record, then we don't know what track records are. I mean, he's already done this, almost the exact same thing at a place with lesser resources than what he has now.
Of course, I mean, he put Morton on the map. He's, was instrumental in Michigan City's run the past few years as their defensive coordinator. He's one of the most highly respected coaches in the area, so just let him and his guys get in there, work with the kids. I mean, I had their game last week. I think their entire offense was like sophomores. It's that type of youth on this team that in a couple years, if these guys stay the course, take their lumps right now, continue to get better, this could be a legitimate contender in the Duneland Conference in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of the sophomores and the underclassmen that are playing. Give Coach Richards some time to figure out the talents and how he can best utilize who he has on his roster. He's still figuring that out. They're getting to know each other, and the more time he has with these kids, the more he'll know exactly what are the type of things that they're great at, that they're good at, or he'll make them great at things. And that's what we saw him do over at Morton. And again, he's in a very similar situation, just maybe not starting from as low of a position as he did then.
Yeah, I mean, Portage, I think I saw a stat the other week that from the 80s till the mid-2000s, Portage had something like 20 straight winning seasons. So Portage has a great tradition behind it. I think the past few years it's been a little bit of tough go for them. I mean, obviously they're in the Duneland, and it's tough to get wins. And sometimes you can be a quote-unquote bottom feeder in a really good conference win, but you're still a pretty good football team. So I think it's about taking that next step, continue. I think Willow Creek, Fagley Middle School have very good programs usually. I think it's about incorporating those kids in and getting that kind of whole town buzz around the football program, kind of like what we've seen Coach Bazia do at Crown Point, where he was coming in to a team that wasn't, really doing very well the past few years before him, really got the excitement and the buzz, so to speak, going around in the entire town. And now we see them as one of the top teams in the region.
Yeah, he didn't have. I don't think when with Bazia at Crown Point, he's starting. I think at a little bit of a higher scale than where Roy's coming in.
Definitely.
Roy Richards at Portage, so Roy's job is going to be a little bit tougher. Not that but Bazia, what Craig Bazia has done in Crown Point is mind-boggling. I'm not shorting that in any way, shape, or form. But again, mentioning Buzz. He's the guy that, one of the two guys that had it. We mentioned the 80s to the mid-2000s. Portage hasn't been the same since Craig Bazia was kicked out of town. And be careful what you wish for out there. You just might get it, and now he's beating you guys. But that's the past, and now Roy Richards is there. And again, for Portage fans, I would suggest that, just give him some time. Give him, support him, give him some time. If you want that program to be a winner, you got a coach that can make it happen. So
undoubtedly,
make his path a little easier to get that done. Don't put obstacles in his way. Again, if you want to see that program win, just get behind him. It'll start winning.
And now they've got Brett St. Germain as their athletic director, a guy who's won a state championship as a head football coach. So I think that helps too when you've got admin that know firsthand what it takes to get to the highest level of high school football in this state.
Well, and he's got the football background that you mentioned. I think is key. A lot of athletic directors out there with various different backgrounds, but as you mentioned with Saint, he's been through it as a coach all the way to the finals. He's been through it as a player, as an assistant coach, as a head coach, as an assistant coach again. So he does know what it takes, and I also think he's Saint's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder and something to prove. So my goal is that he wants to be successful out there in his job as athletic director, and what better way to establish being successful than to take a program from the bottom of the Duneland and bring it to the top of the Duneland, and then from there have your coach go and have postseason success.
Exactly. I think that's, for those guys over there, I'm sure that's number one. I mean, football is sort of king. I think Indiana historically is a basketball state, but I think more and more we've seen in the past 10 years or so, football has really come on so strong throughout the entire state that it really is king, I think, in Indiana now.
I've been saying that for years. And, the few times I've traveled to different parts of the country, even went to Mexico a couple of times. And when people hear I'm from Indiana, when they ask, and we start talking, basketball would be the first sport that comes up. Steel mills, cornfields, whatever. But when we start talking sports, it's basketball. And I tell them, yeah, that's that would be the national sort of opinion of us. But when you're in the state of Indiana, I agree 100%. Football Friday nights are king, and football from the Michigan-Indiana state line right down to the Ohio River.
It's good.
Friday nights are king, and I couldn't be happier about that because football is my favorite sport. Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. It makes no difference,
here, right?
So. But here we are. It's the Host Connections halftime report, everybody. We're in the Centier Bank studios. Rick Novak, Chris Ramirez here. Claude Martinez is our studio producer. So if anything's wrong, we're hooking it on him right now. He took Nathan Laird's place. You remember Nathan? Yeah, we used to blame it all on Nathan. Now we're blaming it all on Claude. Smile when I say that, Claude.
New scapegoat.
Wipe that sweat off your forehead. We're all having fun. It's Friday night here, week 6 of the high school football season. By the way, before we get back to the scoreboard, I want to bring something up and talk about here real quick. Yeah, grab one of those, Rick. What we're doing, we've got, you see this kind of stuff here. This is reel-to-reel. This goes back, this is Gavitt from the 80s. This is the 86 Gavitt team that had 13 players on it and won a sectional title. We've got all their games that the coach had on VHS. Gavitt hadn't switched over to VHS yet, so they're still on reel-to-reel. I've got all the games from that season, or most of the games from that season, given to me by Darren Rodriguez, a former player of that team. That's not all we have. We've got a lot more of these.
I want to watch that. I mean, 13 players in a section.
13 players, yep.
That is unheard of. Definitely, you won't see that again, I don't think. I mean, that's super. I mean, I want to take a look at that.
It's pretty amazing. It's an amazing story, and we actually plan on doing more with that team in the future. But yeah, I believe they dressed for the night they won sectional. They had 13 guys in uniform.
That's amazing.
Yep, Marty Jamrose coached that team back in '86. So we've got this. Show them what you've got. That's called 3/4 inch there. That's old cable.
It looks like it's some highlights here from September 25th, 2003 through 16th of October 2003. I'm not
Cable
sure what,
TV stuff right
I'm
there.
not sure exactly what teams are on this. I'm not sure but
That could be maybe. I'm thinking that's the Jamie Perko era on cable. If anybody remembers that, the Jamie Perko era. He hosted a show called Region Sports Extra on the cable channel.
Oh, okay.
Did that for years. We've also got 3/4-inch tape of numerous cable games from the 90s and the early 2000s before cable bailed on us when they would still do the game of the week. So we've got countless football and basketball games. We've got this stuff here, which is mini DV tape that needs to be transferred over. That's High 8. That goes back to when I first started sports video. I just would take a Sony camera out and go to baseball games or wherever. And we've got all kinds of this stuff here. This is Highland versus Carmel in the semi-state from '87. Biggest win in Highland football history.
That's
when they
for
beat
sure.
Carmel to go to state in 1987 on a cold, frigid night along the Erie-Lackawanna line over here. And boy, I'll tell you what, I have watched that. That's quite a game here, and nobody expected Highland to win that. But the point of all this is, and we've got, by the way, VHS boxes and boxes. We got closets full up there upstairs, and therein lies the problem. We don't have enough space for this.
more than one person could watch in a lifetime almost, it seems like.
It seems that way, but if you're young enough, you do have a lifetime to watch it. So, and that's where this comes in. What we're asking for is we've got to ultimately digitize this stuff. We cannot afford to keep taking up the room. And for us to actually try to do this on our own would be a monumental undertaking. We'd have to take Friday nights off just to do this. We wouldn't be giving you the games of the week. We'd be saying, see you next year. We're going to go convert some old tape and some old reel-to-reel. We've got 16-inch. We've got Andrean stuff from the 60s.
Oh, boy.
That Phil Mason, when he was the coach, he found it in a closet over there, and he thought of us. He knows he knows we're big into the history, so he brought it over. It's an entire box of
That's
stuff
cool,
that the
man.
old coaches from the 60s left behind. So what we want to do is get all this converted. We want to digitize it and then distribute it, show it, let people see it, let people watch it. It's just something that, we don't have the funds, we don't have the funding to do it. It's an expensive undertaking, and at the end of the day, it comes down to the Region Sports fans out there, the following, the people in Northwest Indiana. You guys are the ones that are going to view this. So we're asking for some help, okay? If you guys would like to see this stuff preserved, digitized, and then distributed, be it through the Facebook channel or the YouTube channel or whatever platform it may be, we want people to be able to watch this, and we want to be able to preserve it. And stuff like this, for one thing, is so old, it needs to get done. It doesn't have forever. This stuff will dry up and blow away in the wind. And all of this tape stuff is the same. It gets old. It gets in different humid conditions or moist conditions. Anything can happen to it. So what we need to do is we need to get it digitized. So again, that's a massive undertaking. So what we've done is set up a GoFundMe page. And Claude, I believe that you sent me that, did you not?
It is on screen as well.
It's also, okay, so you can
Perfect.
see it right on there, the GoFundMe address. And yeah, I don't see it here, Claude, but that's okay. It's down here, so that's all that's important. Any size contribution, there you go. Thank you, Claude. It's GoFundMe.com/RSN-remember-the region. The-region, okay, just like it says right down there. So it's basically, that's what we're trying to do, keep the memories of the region, not only football, but the other stuff we have as well. We want to keep that alive. So what do you think about that, Rick? You think there's a few people out there that might find this a worthy cause?
Well, I think I'm going to throw a couple bucks in because I do think it is a worthy cause to have these very historical games on tape. I mean, I think that's so cool to have games like the Highland Carmel game. Games where, there's guys now walking around there, they've got kids themselves. I'm
Yep.
sure it'd be cool for everyone, I think, if we were able to put this on digital. Then it's there forever, guys. Then there's
Yep.
no...
Yep.
No worry about the tapes drying out or anything. The games will be there, and they will never, ever go away. And you'll be able to post them on Region. We'll be able to post them for you guys on the Facebook page, on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch them anytime you want. So if you want to go back if you used to play back then, if you're a young kid like me and want to see the old timers out there in their prime, I think
The
it's
big old shoulder pad.
Hey, right,
days.
the big
Remember
shoulder
those
pads.
Shoulder pads would be out here.
the cowboy collars,
Yep.
the face bar down the middle. Yeah, I think I
Yep.
think it's very worthwhile, and we would really appreciate any donations that you guys have in your hearts.
Yep, that we certainly would. So we've got a massive undertaking, but we are looking forward to doing it with your help. So if you don't mind, you could throw a couple of coins in, a few coins in. We'd certainly appreciate it. It'll help get this ball rolling. And then, yeah, I mean, think about it. There's there's kids out there playing today whose parents or whose fathers, and these are football games, so their fathers. But we may even we've got some girls basketball and other things, so their mothers could be on some of that.
I want to see if I'm on there. I mean,
yeah. So and then we've got stuff going back to the 70s and the 60s and the 70s. So there could be grandparents. We could have 3 generations of people. And I know we do get asked occasionally, hey, do you got this game or do you got that game? It's really tough to do one game at a time. Someone would have to pay for the entire conversion process to get one tape. So what we're kind of looking for is if we can get a little from a lot, okay, then we can take this and we can sort of mass produce it out, and then again put it to where everything ultimately that's available will be there for the viewing audience to see.
Digital library, so to speak. I think
That's what it is. It'll be a digital library of local sporting events. Again, a lot of this stuff is really good quality in terms of, some of these cable companies had 3-4 cameras out there. They had graphics, a field camera, shots of the coaches and the team on the field, so it's some really cool stuff. But yeah, its time has come. This needs to be
it's older than me, everybody. I mean, come on.
Yeah, some of it's, there's some of it's older than me, believe it or not. So it's just time that we, make an effort to get this done. And we feel that, the people that follow us year in and year out, or the people that find us as they go, if you're watching this, you probably have an interest in region. You must have an interest in region football.
Assume.
You wouldn't be bothering watching us on a Friday night. So, and if you have any historical sort of, context about you, that's what we're trying to do here. Nowadays, things get converted digitally, and everybody has a copy of something, whether it's, mom and dad getting the phone, whether it's the coach putting something on Huddle. There's a million different ways to record things. This stuff here really is once in a lifetime kind of stuff. Yeah. And we need to take care of it. So
it'd be a shame to lose it.
Absolutely.
It really would.
And that's what it's going to come down to. We either got to use it or we're going to lose it. So, and it's just too much of an undertaking for us as a small company to try to take on by ourselves. If we did that, something would have to give. There'd be 2 games or 1 game on Friday night. So we're asking you to let us continue doing what we're doing and help us with this. And we'll do the best to get this stuff recorded and pumped out as quick as possible for people to look at. So, again, it's whatever you can do. You want to do $5? Do $5. You want to do 500? Do 500. It's entirely up to you. If something in the middle, be just as fine. So, but yeah, let's get back to the scoreboard here because it is Friday night. This is, by the way, the Strachan Van. This is the hometown scoreboard, and it is courtesy of Strachan Van Til. You got to bear with me, Rick. I'm a little rusty too. My first week back in the studio here in quite a while.
This is my first time in the studio, so Rick, I'm just trying to get my bearings here.
Yep, you're doing fine and just fine. By the way, again, Rick Novak here with us. Former Andrean football guy right there. He looks like a football guy, doesn't he? I mean, he looks like, and he is a football guy, and we're glad to have him his first season here with the Region Sports Network. And, okay, let's get back to it. Games we've got on tonight, Valpo and Crown Point. 7-6 last we heard.
It was.
That's in the third.
7-12. It looks
12 to 7. Oh, 7-12. Yeah, it is 12 to 7. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, Crown Point is taking
the lead. Now, that we told you 7-6 earlier. That first 6 was due to a penalty on the extra point, I believe, and then a missed extra point to follow.
Yes, it looks
correct?
like I believe You know, we were kind of loosely watching it there, trying to get ready for halftime. It looked like there might have been a 15-yard penalty on Crown Point there, pushed them way far back on the PAT, and they missed it, which could have been a big play in the game, but they have scored again to take the lead.
It still could be, though,
Yes, it
obviously.
could,
Yeah,
yes.
so a 15-yard penalty on an extra point try. There are not a lot of things that could be, is there?
I would assume it'd be some sort of personal foul, some sort of extra.
Somebody lost their cool, or
you know, I don't want to. You know, like we said, we didn't see the play, so it's hard to say specifically. But 15 yards, there's only a few things that could be, and it usually is a personal foul.
yeah,
So
it wasn't somebody that got fidgety and jumped a half a second early.
No, I don't
That's
think
not
so.
a 15-yarder. So, well, hopefully that doesn't play a factor in the game one way or another. But right now, 12-7, Crown Point has taken the lead. Are we in the fourth quarter on that yet, James? No, still
still
third quarter? Okay, no video on this, guys, but you can watch it courtesy of Von Tobel, Game Night in the Region, built by Von Tobel. You can listen to it on our YouTube and our Facebook page. Other games going on tonight, Calumet leads Whiting right now 8-0. We used to call that the land that time forgot over there, but then they built a brand new stadium. So we've renamed it the Buffer Zone, all right? And out in the Buffer Zone tonight, Calumet leads Whiting 8-0. We think that is about at half.
is that an official name? Is that what they call the field over there?
No. That's just what we call it. It's just, you know, like I said, we used to call it the land that time forgot because Calumet kind of did things at their own pace. You know, Calumet
Fair.
Township.
Fair,
You know,
fair.
they did things at their own pace. They didn't move. They didn't, you know, just because somebody else was doing it didn't mean they had to.
Hey,
So it was the
march
land
to
that
the
time
beat of their own
forgot.
drum,
It's
right?
not meant as a knock in any way, shape, or form. It's just a description of the area.
Fair.
And I've had a lot of relatives from that area and spent a lot of time there. So I consider myself to be one of them in a way. But I do believe the time marches on.
Exactly.
And that was one area that us and the people in Calumet Township differed a little bit. So, and it is homecoming, by the way, for Calumet. They've got a great facility out there,
They
by
do.
the
I
way.
remember,
And great people. We love going out there. So please don't anybody start chiming in that I'm being mean or something. I'm just having a little fun. I like every place in the region. So and Calumet is a unique place. It is. So be proud of the fact that you're unique, and don't be upset if someone points that out because I like the fact that you're unique. Speaking of unique, West Side, the Cougars. And by the way, who's ever making our score sheet, West Side is 2 words, okay? We got some Illinois guys in here, Rick,
Apparently,
okay?
okay.
Originally it was Gary West. Now it's West Side. No, it's West Side. 2 words. Huh? Rico made this up?
JT.
Huh?
Jack.
Oh, we're blaming. Okay, all right. Dishing out some blame tonight. All right. Well, we'll just give them initials on that. Okay.
We got-
It's JT, and that could be any number of people
Hey,
here.
right,
Okay.
it's-
We got TJs and JTs running around all over the place. Anyway, on the west side of Gary tonight, the West Side Football Grounds, I call it. 27-14 now. Wheeler leading that one in the third quarter. Interesting story about the West Side Football Grounds. Have you ever been there?
Actually, I used to coach at West Side for a season, a couple seasons ago.
Did you really?
Yeah, I
With
coached-
Eric?
Yeah, with Coach Eric Schreiber Jr.
Okay.
So yes, I have been to West Side a few times.
All right. Well, you know, my uncle used to be an administrator
Okay.
back in the Gary school system back in the day when they built that school. And so anyway, one day they're all, you know, everybody's out there, the mayor and stuff, and they're all looking and admiring the stadium. You know, it's a brand new, they're getting ready to play that Friday. You know, they got all the dignitaries out there, the superintendent and all that kind of stuff. And they're all lined up staring at the beautiful facility. And someone finally steps forward and turns around and says, "Hey, where's the press box?" And they're like, "Huh? What? The press box? Where's the press box?" So it didn't originally have a press box, and they didn't realize it, and that's the reason it's on stilts today. It wasn't
yeah.
actually built in. So
Wow.
yeah, you got to kind of climb up, and that's the reason. Because the bleachers are identical on
Yeah,
each side.
yes.
And if I remember right, I think West Side used to be, the home bleachers used to be on the other side. They were on would have been the east side of the stadium. Is that where they're still at?
The home bleachers now are on the side with the press
With
box.
the press box.
I'm not.
Okay, that's a recent
yeah.
change then. Yep. But again, an interesting story about that facility back in the Eugene Johnson days.
Oh, man, he used to come around, Coach Johnson. I mean, he is obviously a legend at West Side. He coached
Definitely.
them for
Yep.
30, 40
Yeah. Well,
years. I mean, he
they
coached them a
had
long
set of the
time.
program,
I mean,
68 or whatever, until
yeah,
2002
until,
or something.
I want to
or
say
3?
Coach Johnson the next Coach Johnson, Jason Johnson, I want to say was the next guy.
Alex Pratt, maybe. I think
Oh,
Alex
yeah,
Pratt
okay,
came in.
okay.
And you know what? That's one that got away there. Alex was a former player. He ended up out at Homewood Flossmoor with Craig Bazia, and I think he's
man.
still out there.
Okay.
And, boy, he was doing great things. And, Alex, if you're watching, come on back. Take a cut and pay. Come on back. Coach some region kids for us,
Hey,
okay?
I mean-
Pump a little of those Homewood kids over here. We'll find an apartment for
I'll
them.
give a shout out to Coach Boz at West Side now. He's doing great things.
Yes, he
I mean,
is. No, I didn't mean come back and take.
Yeah.
No, I love Coach Alger. I didn't mean take his job. I just mean come over here anywhere. There'll be an open job somewhere.
Yeah, no, for
we
sure.
miss you, Coach. But no, yeah, Alger's doing a great job
No,
over
he's a
there.
great-
Yep.
I mean,
and
he
he's
was doing
stepping in
great
for
stuff.
Eric the way
Yeah.
he did when nobody saw that coming, and
Well, he was doing great stuff with the Gary
Yep.
Steelers Pop Warner program. I think it was
Absolutely,
a natural kind of progression to make him the coach of the high school.
yeah, and you look and you got, I mean, it's Gary West Side, but it's basically Gary High School.
Oh yeah, I mean, in
It's
terms
Gary
of-
High School.
Yeah, I mean, I think
You got 65, 70,000 population there and one public high school.
Yeah, I mean, there's Thea Bowman, Lighthouse. There's some charter schools, but in terms of one high school, West Side is
Yep.
out of all of, Lou Wallace, Roosevelt,
All
Wirtz,
gone.
they're all gone. And
All
West Side,
gone.
And I think they take that seriously as like the last kind of bastion of that
I
kind
would
of
think
tradition.
Too. Yep.
you
If
know?
I were them, I'd be looking. I'd model myself after that Phillips High out of Chicago. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit different with the rules up there, but it's kind of the same. And West Side could do that same thing. They've got a massive drawing area.
Exactly.
And you got to start pulling in kids from all over. Bowman can only take 400 or 500 kids tops, and then boom, they close the door.
Yeah.
Lighthouse Charter, they don't have a football team.
Same thing.
So you've got from 53rd Avenue on the south side to 2nd and 3rd Avenue on the north side. You've got from the county line,
Yeah, right.
okay, to Klein Avenue.
It's an immense city. Whatever. It's exit 5 to exit 12 is all Gary there on
Yep.
8094. I mean, the borders are huge. I mean, I think, like I said, I think it was good to make Coach Boz the head guy. I mean, he had roots in the Pop Warner program, building that up. That's how you build a program, I think. Getting a good
Yep.
feeder system.
That's how you build a public school program, absolutely, from the ground up.
Exactly. Well,
Absolutely,
I think, Catholic schools are a little bit different.
Yep.
But
But in
course-
West Side's case, that would be the way to do
yeah,
it.
and I
Build
think
it from
they're
the
doing
ground
it.
up.
They're doing it the right way, and I think they've had a lot of success in the recent years turning that program around. I'd imagine they're going to continue that because they got good kids there, and they got a good coaching staff.
Absolutely. I see good things on the horizon. West Side's been a bubble team for us all year. And I think Wheeler a bubble team, or did they get in? No, they didn't get in this week, did they? Did we put them at 10? I can't even remember.
I think we had the LC Michigan City.
That's
game up
right.
there,
Michigan
and
City edged them out.
City was in 10,
Yep,
yes.
Michigan City edged them out at number 10. But somebody's got to fall because Lake Central and Michigan City are playing tonight. I don't see that score in front of me. What do you got there?
We had that one at 14-14 going into the half. Again, I'm sure that the third quarter started. Not sure. We're getting confirmation that score is still correct. So 14-14 in the third quarter. We were watching that game. It looked like Michigan City, that long bus ride for all the way from LaPorte County all the way into Lake County. It looked like it took a toll on them because they were sluggish to start that game. LC jumped on them 14-0, and MC kind of clawed their way back in the game to tie it. So when you're traveling almost an hour on a bus for a high school team, that can be, a problem sometimes, especially if it's just for a regular, conference game, not a playoff game or anything like that. So shaking off
So what do
that
you do in a
rust.
situation like that? I mean, on the bus, are the players dressed in street clothes when they get on the bus in Michigan City for the hour ride over, or
I think
are they in football pants? What are they doing?
Usually we would, at Andrean, if I remember correctly, we would be in our pants to start. We'd have we'd have the jerseys on our pads, helmets inside. We'd put them on the back of the bus. We'd be in our pants and whatever we're going to wear under our pads. And basically, we need to get it. It depends. I think sometimes maybe getting there a little bit early, if you're going to have a long bus ride, helps because then you can get off the bus, get loosened up. You're not going straight from the bus to try to play a game. You can get some warm up time. I think that helps. So we would just have our football pants on, have the helmet and shoulder pads ready to go, hop off the bus, start getting into our walkthroughs and our warm ups, and then we should be good to go. And we're hearing now that Michigan State just scored a touchdown. So, like we said, shaking off that rust and getting back to it against LC.
Homecoming night in St. John tonight at LC.
Looks
So
like they could
how
be
does that
playing
affect the team?
To be completely honest, homecoming was never something that at least for when I was playing at Andrean, we really thought about, I guess. I think we were trying to win every game. I think
Homecoming and Andrean more for the adults than the kids, isn't it?
I think maybe. I think for us, that was never something. I guess maybe I'm not the right guy to ask because we really never. I think homecoming was something. After we play this game and we win, then we can go and worry about homecoming on Saturday. Because if we don't win this game tonight, it's going to make homecoming on Saturday a lot less enjoyable.
I would think so, absolutely.
So
yep.
I think that's the mentality you got to approach it with.
Back to the hometown scoreboard, courtesy of your neighborhood Strachan Van Til. 27-0, Maryville leads LaPorte at the Purple Palace tonight. Maryville, are they as good as we think they are, or are we overrating them? Are we underrating them?
I think they're one of the best teams in the region, but I do think it's fair to say that they aren't as good as they have been the past few years. I think their defense is legit. They've got some very good players, some Division I level recruits on their defense. I think on offense right now they're struggling a little bit. Last week they beat Michigan City with no offensive touchdowns, which is great, but the problem is you're going to go play Valpo next week, and I don't know if that's going to fly. So on offense, I do think they're struggling a bit. They've got to find a way to be able to consistently move the football, and I know that's kind of been their problem the entire year. They've had a very dominant defense, especially on their defensive line, but on offense, they've been a little suspect, and against the best teams, you have to be able to score points in order to win.
Couple more scores here, 42-7. Speaking of scoring points, Hanover Central has no problem doing that, whether it be tonight, last week, the week before, last year, the year before. This team can put points on the board. 42-7 at half is the last update we got from our friends over there at the Marshlands on Columbia Avenue.
Yeah,
or as one of our announcers used to call it, Calumet Boulevard.
Okay.
And he was a local guy. He was an Andrean guy, and if you're watching, you know who you are. Calumet Boulevard. How about that one?
It is look,
It's
Hanover.
It's the street between the boulevard and Calumet.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Calumet
I mean, you
Boulevard.
You could. I roll with it. Look, Hanover. I think a lot of people were doubting their ability to come into the NCC this year, and look, they've been nothing but dominant. They have a chance to potentially put the running clock on every team this year. I think Hobart and Andrean are going to have the best chance against them here, but the dominance that Hanover has shown in their first year in the NCC, I hope, as a former NCC guy myself, I hope that's waking up the other teams in that conference like, hey, this team just came in here in their first year coming from a quote-unquote inferior league and just wiped the floor with all of us and ran the table without breaking a sweat pretty much. We got to step our game up because, if that happened when I was in school, we wouldn't be standing for that because we took conference seriously. So I think, like I said, I hope this is a wake-up call for every other team in that conference in the NCC because Hanover has come in and they're just running roughshod over anybody, and I don't know if anyone is going to be able to stop them.
I'm with you. I don't see anybody who's going to be able to slow down that offense. Where I think this is the conference move now, where I wanted to see it benefit them was in the postseason.
Of course.
And I thought the way that would happen was by getting challenged a couple of times in the regular season.
Well, I think they're playing better teams. I think it's not like they're not playing better teams. They are playing better teams in the NCC than they were playing in the GSCC. Not saying that the Greater South Shore.
The scores aren't 69-0; they're 42-7.
And to be fair, I think in the NCC it is sort of a down year. To be honest.
Come on, Hanover, score some points.
Yes, it is a little bit of a down year in the conference. I think Hobart, Andrean, Lowell aren't as good as they have been the past few years. So that's, I think, part of the problem.
Yep.
But
Hanover's timing is good.
It's their timing is great.
Yep.
I think if they came in the conference last year, they wouldn't have had as much success.
Imagine 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But look, the growth in South Lake County and Cedar Lake has been astronomical the past few years, and I think it's going to continue to go that way. And since they have reached, when I was in high school, which was less than 10 years ago, Hanover didn't have a football team. So the growth and the level they've taken this program within a decade's time is very impressive. And you got to think with the trajectory they're on, it's only going to keep going up. This is a team that could potentially be in 4A in the next couple of years. So Coach Parker over there is building a monster. He had Coach Koulianis, who's now at Highland. He was the first head coach, and Coach Parker has kind of taken the reins from him after Coach Koulianis left, and he's really elevated them. And this train isn't stopping anytime soon, and I think it's up to the teams in the NCC to re-step their game up and realize, hey, we got a new kid on the block, and he's the bully already.
Yeah, he's not the little brother.
Exactly.
And I think maybe that was sort of how they were looked upon a little bit. I know I talked to some teams out there, and they were more, nobody said anything derogatory about him, but they weren't necessarily giving him respect either. It's, well, we'll have to see. It wasn't, hey, that's a good football team, and we're going to have our hands full when they get here.
Well, they better respect.
But I think we're all finding that out. And look what they did to Lowell. And granted, Lowell is not. They're not having a year where you look and say, hey, Lowell's a team that can make a long playoff run. They're getting beat 37-7 right now by Hobart at the half, and Hanover destroyed them. But they're still Lowell, okay? And for Hanover to come in and do that on their first real test in the conference against Lowell, who's essentially going to likely be the rival for them. It's a net. They're next to each other.
Exactly.
It's a quick 10-minute drive down a side road from one to the other. That to me was a major statement.
It was a statement. I mean, we were watching that score. I remember I had a game that week, and we were watching that score on the region scoreboard, the Strachan Van Til's region scoreboard. Correct.
That is correct.
And we were shocked. I think we were expecting maybe Hanover to win, but the margin that they won by putting the running clock on them, on Lowell, I think was extremely impressive. And like I said, it's looking like they could potentially put the running clock on every team in the NCC. I mean, like I said, Hobart and Andrean, I think, have something to say about that. But the potential is there. The potential is there. And right now, Hanover is by far the lead horse in this conference. Yep. I mean, and it doesn't look like anyone is going to be able to play with them. And that is shocking, I think. Like I said, I thought that they would slot right in there with Lowell, Andrean, Hobart. I didn't know if they would be as dominant as they would, but I knew that they would be in that upper echelon. But the dominance they've shown, that has been surprising, and I think that's put the whole region on notice.
Absolutely.
Yep.
LC has tied it up at the all-new Burial Grounds, 21-all against Michigan City on homecoming night. Where are we at on that, fourth quarter?
We got a dogfight.
You can watch that on the Region Sports Network if you want. If you don't like what you're seeing here, slide up or down the page. That game is on somewhere on Region Sports Nation. So a couple more scores to get to here. Culver and KV tonight down on the farm. It's KV 17, Culver 7. That's Culver Academy, by the way. Highland and Andrean just a few blocks away from us. We could hear the crowd cheering in the first quarter. Second quarter, they were booing. Third quarter, there's no sound at all. So I take it 14-0. Has it gotten any worse over there, or is it still 14-0 Andrean? Do we know?
He's checking. We got live updates coming to us.
Chula Vista, that's Eastlake, California.
21-0.
21-0. Plus, Andrean had the ball a couple of times we mentioned earlier. I think with first and goal situations, it didn't score. So Highlands managed to keep that from being a blowout. But give me your thoughts on Highland. Came in this summer touting 35 seniors. Going to be a big year. They're down to just over 20 seniors. We don't know what happened to the other 12 or 13. And suddenly they're having all kinds of trouble on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been a story for Highland for a long time.
Yes, it has.
I have to be completely honest, I think even back when I was in high school, this was their story. I think they're a team that's, anytime you feel like they could potentially be getting over the hump, it's
doesn't happen.
Tough. Yeah, I mean, look, they're playing in the NCC, even if we're saying it's a little bit down this year, look, they're playing 4 teams in the NCC right now with Hanover. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Good.
With Hanover, Lowell, Andrean, and Hobart that are pretty good. I mean, that are historically, in the past 20 years, better than Highland, and Highland has struggled to get wins against those teams. Well, not Hanover, because Hanover's new, but it's looking like in the
Hanover
future.
pasted them this year.
Yeah, it's looking like that might be. It looks like Hanover might be in that same category.
Yep.
So it's tough. When you talk about the seniors and you got guys maybe potentially quitting the team, look, when you're coming in with that much hype in the summer and then it doesn't go your way, you're dealing with kids, and sometimes it can be hard to keep them engaged.
Here we go again.
Exactly.
Why am I putting all this work in when we're going to get the same result?
It's hard to go out there and get beat up on in football and not be good, to be honest. I mean, that's tough. I mean, when I coached, we would always tell the young guys, hey, you're playing against guys that are years older than you, and I understand it can be not fun at some points, and that could be potentially what they're experiencing. It's tough to
That's
go
where
out.
the mental toughness has got to come
Exactly,
in,
that's
right?
where-
That's the difference between the physical and the. If
Exactly.
you're mentally tough, you'll be willing to put up with the physically tough stuff you got to go through
Exactly.
to keep moving
and
on.
I think it's about cultivating that in a program, honestly. I think if you have that instilled in a program, those younger guys understand that, and they understand, like, hey, we got to wait our turn. And those seniors, it's already, they're in their turn now, so they're not going to look back at all. They put in 4 years of work and all that, and they take pride in that. So I think, I don't know the ins and outs of Highlands program, so it's hard for me to really make comments on their culture or anything like that. All I can just see is what I'm seeing on the field.
Which is history repeating itself basically over
Yes,
and over again.
and it's,
4 and 5, 4 and 5, 4 and 5 every year it seems, and in games that I know I'm expecting them to compete in. It's not happening, and you got to wonder why is that?
It's tough. I mean, I don't know how their youth programs are. Like we talked about, for a public school team, I really do think Pop Warner, middle school, the youth programs, that's where you build football players at. At Andrean, we have, everyone talks about Andrean, but Andrean, is at a big disadvantage because there's no CYO football around here. There's a lot of kids that go to Andrean that have never played a down of football, and they have to be kind of taught from the ground up, which at some point actually can be a better thing because then you don't have to reteach any bad habits or anything like that. But
Well, that's where having a program run from the top down
and the tradition,
Yes,
and I think
and if you have a head coach at the varsity level who's in contact with the Pop Warner and making sure that things are done a certain way and everybody's on the same page,
exactly.
then you build a winner.
Exactly. I think, I'm not trying to get out of our scope, but there's a team down south called Center Grove. They're one of the best teams in the state. They run the wing tee, and from when they're this tall to when they're 18-year-olds, seniors, they run the wing tee, and it's like a second nature to them. And they're one of the best programs in the entire state, and that's for a reason because they cultivate football players down there. That's how you build a team. I talked about Portage earlier, that Fagley and Willow Creek are some of the best middle schools in the area in terms of talent and having some of the best records, but there seems to be kind of a disconnect from getting to middle school to high school, and it's really important for a public school team to cultivate that and to be able to get that connection between your middle school team, your Pop Warner teams, and your high school team. That's why these teams do Pop Warner nights, why they do junior Indian nights we had at Lake Central the other week, et cetera, et cetera. You got to be able to build that continuity throughout the entire town, and I'm not sure if Highland's been able to do that, and if they want to get back to, we're talking about them beating Carmel in semi-state in 1987. If they want to ever get even close to that kind of height again, they're going to have to start doing that kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, and I just don't know if the leadership in the community, if that's something that
I mean, I
that
don't
they're
know about
willing
that,
to-
so I
Yeah,
can't
well-
comment. But
no one knows because
Yeah.
nothing ever changes. So, but anyway, yeah, I mean, and you mentioned Center Grove. I think a couple of perfect examples, certainly one example here, and Highland can relate to it, was the Griffith program.
Exactly.
Griffith and Highland used to have joint Pop Warner back in the 90s.
Okay.
But they did things Griffith's way. Okay? So Highland broke off and had their own, I don't know, late 90s maybe, I'm guessing it was, mid 90s, whatever it was. But what made Griffith so good all those years, and you guys played Griffith, and you know what they were like.
the bone.
The Wishbone. Those kids, every kid wasn't Jack Kaczynski. They didn't have great athletes every year, and all four guys that were touching the ball weren't all future college players. Russ Radke got more out of 5'9", 175 than anybody in history. Okay, but what those kids knew how to do on Friday night was they knew how to do their job better than you knew how to do your job.
Exactly.
And they were willing to do whatever it took, and that was instilled in them at a very young age. Don Howell did the same thing in
I was gonna
Hobart.
say-
You wanted to grow up and you wanted to be a brickie.
All my life, I want to be a brick. They
That's
still
it.
say it to this day.
Yep.
I mean, you go there and I was there calling the Chesterton Hobart game, first game of the year, and they had their junior bricky night. So it's super important, and Hobart, that's a football crazy town, and we've seen the fruits of that success. Fruits of the labor, so to speak, from Coach Howell all the way back in the 70s, 80s to this day. Those kids in Hobart, those young boys, want to be brickies.
Hey, will you, James, excuse me a second, everybody. James, update that for me if you would. Oh, my phone's got the updates here? All right, let's take a look here. Hobart 51-14.
Man.
They defeat the Lowell Red Devils. Two of the best in region football, historically speaking. I mean, Hobart goes back farther, but Lowell goes back 30-plus years with the hiring of Kirk Kennedy. And what a great program. I hope that they can.
I mean, it's a 1 year. I mean, I think in high school football, it's really hard to be really good every year. You're going to have cyclical, it's the cyclical nature of talent, basically. It's going to be really, really difficult to consistently have a state championship caliber team as a public high school in this state. The Catholic schools have it easier, I think. So it's to be expected a little bit because Lowell the past few years has been pretty good. So, sometimes you are a little bit down here. I think it's about, getting young guys playing time and building towards next year already for them, because I would imagine they're not going to be, this bad next year. I would think that's pretty safe to assume.
Yeah, and one thing about Lowell is they typically get better as the year goes on. I mean, the year they won state, I think they were 1-3 or 1-4 when they started. But Lowell always gets better later. Not always, but you can't necessarily judge them by what they do the first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. And to me, the reason for that has always been because they do the same thing over and over again, and they're going to get better at it because they don't kid themselves. Look, we're losing. We're going to be, all right, you know what? We're going to drop back and pass all night.
No.
That's just not what Lowell does.
They have an identity. And again,
they live by it.
That's, again, when we're talking about building programs, it's that identity. If you don't have that swagger, that kind of demeanor to you year in and year out, even when you're not the best on the field, it's hard to build a good program. You got to have guys who believe. If that's almost, it sounds corny. It sounds like some, movie, TV.
But that's the way it is.
That is the truth. You got to have guys out there that buy in and believe and think that they're going to win every game, whether they actually have a reason to or not. So
that's it. You got to make believers out of it.
And Lowell has that. Those guys, whenever they go out there, they think they're going to win no matter what.
They do play with heart, don't they?
They do. They always play hard. They're not a dirty program at all. I think that was always one thing that I thought about them. They played super hard, but not dirty at all. Real clean, ran the program right, and they've had a lot of success the past 20 years, and it's not too hard to understand why when you see the way they do things down there.
Lake Central 24, Michigan City 21. We just got an update here on the Strachan Van Til hometown scoreboard. 44 seconds left in that one, so going to go down to the wire. All right, hey, Claude, you know what? Our good friends over at Langle's Pizza in downtown Highland, you know what they're going to do for us? They're going to send us over 2 large pizzas when you call them. There's going to be 1 cheese. There's going to be 1 sausage and pepperoni. And I'm going to give you the number, 219-923-4900. That's the same number Claude's going to call to order our pizzas, 219-923-4900. Call Langle's Pizza in downtown Highland. It's some good stuff. They'll deliver it piping hot, or you can go pick it up. Or better yet, you can go in there. You go in, you have yourself a tasty beverage, you watch a little of Region Sports football on their many, many TVs. You might even see the Strachan Van Til hometown scoreboard. You might even see his handsome mug when you sit down. Okay? That's Rick Novak, by the way. That's the handsome mug there to the left of me. So anyway, that is Langle's Pizza. Did I say Rodney's?
No, you said Langle's.
I said Langle's.
No.
Okay, it's Rodney.
Perfect
There's
read.
Rodney's on this side, Langle's on this side. So what you do is you go in. If you're going to get a pizza to go or food to go, you get it from Langle's. But if you're going to hang out there for a while, you hang out in Langle's. Okay, and then you hang out in Rodney's. Langle's will bring you the food over. Good stuff. I was just there last night, and again, 219-923-4900 is the phone number. Langle's, they'll deliver you piping hot pizza. So, all right, I think we covered all the scores that we have for now. We've got the hometown scoreboard, courtesy of Strachan Van Til, running live on our Facebook and YouTube page. And whatever games we're doing, we got 3 games. Whatever's still live is still going. 2 of them are video. 1 of them is audio. So visit us at Region Sports Nation Facebook page or the Region Sports YouTube channel. Also, regionsports.com. I think we got stuff there. We got stuff on the IHSA website. So, and if you haven't liked our page, do us a favor, okay? Like our page. Also, don't forget, look for our GoFundMe account here. We're doing this for you guys. This is your history here. We want to preserve it, so help us do that. Check out our GoFundMe page and drop a couple of nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars, $5, $10, $20 bills, whatever you want to do, whatever you can afford. We'd appreciate it. It all goes towards getting this stuff converted. Okay, that's going to do it now from the Centier Bank Studios. For Rick Novak, I'm Chris Ramirez. You've been watching the Hose Connections Halftime Report here on the Region Sports Network, the only game